What is up, fam? And welcome to Gamer Chat, where we try to get an inside look into games and gamer influences from around the community. I'm your host, Brandon, and in this episode we have Hollman, or Joe, VQS Hollman. Welcome, Hollman. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks for coming. Um, how's your day been so far?
So far, so good. Just an easy Sunday morning. Taking the dogs out, coming coming out of a nice top split win from last night in one of the final rounds of the exhibition Nations Cup races. So far, so good this weekend.
Awesome. What was that, Lasarth, at Group 1 at Lasarth? And that was the old
Yep.
cars, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the 80s and 90s Le Mans prototype race cars around 8 laps around Le Mans with extremely high tire wear. So it's a pretty big handful with those cars.
They're hard to drive even without high tire wear. Shit. So, you got a dog? What kind of dog you got?
Got a little corgi. His name is Sebastian. He's about 6 months old, and he's a pretty big fan of Gran Turismo as well.
Yeah, I've been in some parties with you before, and I hear him always squeaking this little squeaky toy.
Yeah,
So,
those are just the tools for our race cars.
so right now we're showing a top 16 superstar race that you were in. What are these? We're at Road Track A around Sardinia, and this isn't the Red Bull Junior, is it?
No, these are the big boys. These are the Red Bull competition race cars that are widely used in a lot of Gran Turismo Sport high caliber races, whether it's like a World Tour or the like season finale races. For the whole Nations Cup for the 2020 season, this was the final car used.
Okay. So what got you into racing?
Oh man, I got to go all the way back to maybe when I was a kid, and just one Saturday night, my dad took me out to one of the local dirt tracks around our area, and just seeing a bunch of cars just fly by on a racetrack, and it's not something you usually see on the road. They're still cars, and just something struck me there.
Yeah.
Just growing up being a pretty fierce competitor in anything that I tried to get my hands in.
Well, didn't you actually compete in some other sports?
Yeah, I was for a long time I was a competitive swimmer.
Really?
hmm
Now I've heard that it's good to be tall in swimming. Are you tall?
I'm a even 6 foot,
Even 6 foot.
so not ridiculously tall for like Olympic level, but I mean I think it's a little higher than average. I'm not sure what the national average is.
I wonder how tall Michael Phelps is. He looks tall.
Oh, he's like 6'5".
Oh my god. Somebody wanted me to ask if you had webbed toes.
Uh,
I imagine you don't, but I mean,
I don't know. Maybe it's a secret. I don't think anyone will ever know.
that's a trade secret. So, you got into racing when you were young. What kind of racing do you watch?
I mean, being like with the local circle tracks, it really struck me as a kid with NASCAR. So for a while I was pretty into NASCAR, and then, when you're watching like shows on TV that are about racing and they branch off to like other motorsports and stuff like that, like Formula One and GT racing and IndyCar, it kind of just expanded. So instead of like just like saying, oh, one motorsport is better than the other, I just kind of like got my feet into a lot of different types of racing and just enjoy any kind of it.
That's cool. I kind of grew up with NASCAR too, but I was never exposed to anything else. So I'm always like, when people talk about some of the other racing leagues and stuff, I'm completely ignorant. I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, especially since NASCAR is so big in the United States. I mean, we're both from here.
Yeah.
But once you kind of look outside of the United States, there's so much more.
Yeah, I remember going to a bar one time with my dad, and we were there to watch a NASCAR race, and I seen other racing on another TV, and it was Vipers and Corvettes, and I was like, I want to watch that, but I didn't know how to look it up. I didn't know what it's called or anything. But so you pretty much you track a lot of different racing, huh? Do you
Yeah.
how what got you into Gran Turismo Sport? Is Gran Turismo Sport the first Gran Turismo you've played?
No. The very first one I actually had encounter with was Gran Turismo 4 in my friend's basement on his PlayStation and a wheel. And we just started playing it one day, and I was just hooked ever since. Like, I just didn't want to get off of it. Because I was like, I mean, before that, I had like Mario Kart and a bunch of racing games that weren't necessarily as such a high caliber game as I would say Gran Turismo is.
Yeah.
But once I was on that, it's like, all right, I need a PlayStation. I need to get this game. Uh, and I don't know when I'm going to come out of my parents' basement, but you'll see me soon. And then after that, I got into Gran Turismo 5, Gran Turismo 6 on PS3. But for both of those, I was never really exposed to much, a lot of like online competitive stuff because that wasn't necessarily big. I think the only like big competitive racing game for online out there at the time was either R Factor or iRacing. But then when Gran Turismo Sport was announced and they were just giving release dates for it and everything, I just hopped on it immediately, and the whole just competitive online racing world exploded through my eyes.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I didn't even know about Gran Turismo Sport till like last year, but I ended up on a search for something that was competitive online racing that was actually reasonable. But and when I started, I had the controller. When you first started playing Gran Turismo Sport, were you on the sticks or did you have a wheel then too?
With Gran Turismo Sport, I had the Logitech G29. I got that right when I got my PlayStation 4 because I knew I was going to get into racing. Because before that, there was Project Cars and Assetto Corsa out, so I had the Logitech wheel for that. But then
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then once things started to get a little serious, I decided to upgrade to a Thrustmaster TGT, which is the same wheel that is used in a lot of the Gran Turismo World Tour events. So just getting the feel for the same wheel as like a lot of high caliber drivers are.
Yeah.
It just makes it a little bit more relatable.
What was the transition like from G29 to the TGT? How long did it take? Did you immediately have speed, or was there a learning curve?
It was like relearning how to ride a bike all over again, man. It honestly, like when I first got the wheel, I'm like, all right, I'll just take things easy for a bit, just get a feel for it, and hopefully when time comes, I'll be back up to the pace that I was, and ended up getting a lot quicker than I actually ever thought I would have ever gone.
How long have you been racing top split?
I think this year, the beginning of 2020 season, was like the first time that I was kind of like a regular in top split racing. But before that, in like the 2019 championships, I think I was either third or second.
Really? Was there like a point in time where you knew that you were good enough to be in top split and you just had to earn your way there, or was it kind of like, did you end up kind of surprised like, oh, there's top split drivers in this race?
I'm trying to think of a race that I did where I realized, like, all right, I'm with the big boys now. I would say one time would be my first top 16 superstar race in Nations Cup, because that's the best top 16 highest rated drivers in the championship standings, and that's when I realized, like, my name's here. Everyone's gonna see Hollman on the screen.
Yeah.
But before that, it's kind of hard to see, just because there's some races where there'll be a lot of these high caliber guys in there, and then there are other races where there's not as much. Because maybe it's because there's some car and track combinations that some people it just doesn't work with, but for other people, it's fantastic. So I think being up at this high level, a lot of guys pick and choose their battles.
True. I've noticed that there are definitely some races where less people are participating, and that I think they call there's some DR races where you can lose a lot of DR. Do you tend to avoid those, or do you try to get in them all to get the experience, or?
I think the more high caliber drivers there are in a lobby, the better it's going to be. Not just for points, but
True.
just for racing in general. Because it's like if you make a mistake, a slight mistake, they're going to walk all over you, and that might be your race. But if you capitalize on their mistakes, it can make or break a personal best race for someone.
Yeah.
Like
So
going into a top 16 superstar race, I didn't even think I'd make top 10 out of 16 drivers, because there's a lot of guys from Phoenix 7, VLX, TX3, which are all very, very, very good teams in this game. They have very fast drivers, and being able to just like crack a top 10, it's really rewarding.
and is that like the time trials before the race or whatever, or it's just like actual during the race, like when you're with them and
I'd
you
say
qualify?
that's during the race.
Yeah. I think I've noticed that some of those guys, they'll plan on doing the race, but they won't even do the time trial before. It's like they just do all their practicing somewhere else.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about time trial. It doesn't really count for anything. It's really just to see how fast you can go with no fuel consumption or tire wear in these cars.
Yeah.
But then when you get into the race, you gotta, think a little bit more about strategy. So it's a lot more to think about during the race of how you're gonna manage your own strategy and how is that gonna outperform everyone else.
Yeah. Do you happen to
But
remember what your strategy was for this Sardinia race?
I
I'd
think
have
I
probably
started on
forgot.
softs, I believe.
You are on softs right now. Got about a half tank of fuel.
Yeah, I believe you had to fuel up a little bit. Not too much. It wasn't like an extreme fuel saver race. But with these cars, since there's so much power to the back wheels, you really had to manage, like not trying to overdrive the car out of the corners, because that'll just burn the tires up, and then by the time that you want to pit, or even before you want to pit, your tires are already chewed up, and that would have to risk pitting early.
Yeah, I did notice like the back came out on you a little bit one time, but you handled it pretty well. And I mean, I've driven these cars maybe 2 or 3 times, and they're really touchy.
They are.
So do you have like you spend a lot of time racing these guys that are at the cream of the crop, and you're with them. Are there any guys that you prefer to race with more, just due to how fun it is or how clean they are or anything like that?
I mean, I like racing with all of them, kind of on the same level. There are some that are completely past my level, and there are some guys that I'm pretty dead even with, and then there's some guys that I know that I should be able to beat them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, again, it's like picking and choosing your battles. Like if someone came in the pits and I didn't pit, and then they come out behind me and they're in fresh tires and they want to get around, I'm not going to hold them up, because they're on their own race, their own strategy. At the beginning of the race, up until that point, we weren't really battling each other that much. So it's more about respecting their own races as well.
True. Now, so what do you do for work?
I am a certified technician for Volkswagen and Audi.
Now, did racing kind of push you in that direction, or is it just
Oh yeah, definitely.
really?
Oh yeah. I really had no idea. I mean, I was so much. I mean, in high school, I was probably the guy that weird kid that just knew everything about cars and racing compared to everyone else. But I was fine with that. I didn't really care what they thought about that. But yeah, no, the love for racing, it really helps me in picking a career that I'm probably going to stick with for the rest of my life.
That's really cool. It sounds a lot more fulfilling than what most people end up doing.
Right.
So, do you have any other hobbies that you do aside from racing, or any other games that you play?
Uh, I dabble a little bit with Assetto Corsa as well. It's another racing game.
Okay.
I want to try to do a little bit more with that, but with they don't really have like official seasons like they do in Gran Turismo, where the developers provide like a league that anyone in the game can join. So it might be a little bit more difficult to like find a competitive league like that, but just like going into a lobby and racing with other people in Assetto Corsa, I've had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. That game's a lot more. I have the game. I haven't played it much, but it's a lot more sim. It leans way more to the simulator side than GT Sport, right?
Yeah. For as good as Gran Turismo is, reaching out to a pretty big target audience, being a flagship racing game for a console, it's not as in depth as it is with like all the different real variables that can happen in racing with like tire temperature, track temperature, the weather, the car setup. Because in these races, that's the nice thing about Gran Turismo, is everyone is almost on an equal playing field. Same car, same track, same tire wear, same setup for every single car for almost all of these races. That's not necessarily true in Assetto Corsa. It's all about what you prefer and how you think you're going to go fast with the setup that you made or someone else made.
So we're on the subject of simulators. What do you think about iRacing? Is there any reason you don't play iRacing, or?
It's always something that I've always wanted to get into, but I've never had the equipment to do it, like a hardcore gaming PC that'll be able to keep up with it. Because
Yeah.
I don't really know the hardware specifications it takes to run that game. It's always something that I'd like to do, because again, there's such a wide range of stuff you can do in that game when it comes to like private leagues or trying to get to a pro level or stuff like that, because there's a lot of real racing leagues that will use iRacing as like their virtual racing platform, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's crazy. can you imagine like being a race car driver for like Ferrari, and then you go to the shop and they have an iRacing setup?
Yeah, and it would be really cool to see a lot of pro drivers that use that specific platform for their own training.
That's insane. That iRacing. That's crazy. I've had pretty much just the same thoughts on it you do. I have a computer, but actually I tried to turn it on the other day and it didn't turn on. So I don't know if I have a computer. But yeah, that's definitely. It seems like if I guess the one thing it lacks though is how pretty it is. But I have a buddy that's got $2,500 computer, probably make it look pretty good.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, if you wanna make it look really nice, you can, but it's just you're gonna have to write a pretty big check for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just something that I kind of want to start putting money aside just to see what I can do and save up for iRacing. But at the same time, Gran Turismo 7 is coming out fairly soon. The PlayStation 5 people are already starting to order that. So we're kind of in this. A lot of Gran Turismo teams and drivers are kind of in this weird gray area where we don't really know what to do with ourselves. I know a lot of the guys in Vanquish, we're always just trying to recruit new drivers, especially in the North American region, since it's a European-based team.
How many people you guys have in North America?
Right now we have, I think, 5. And there's probably 15 to 20 guys in Europe.
Dang.
Yeah, and they're all high caliber drivers over there as well. It's a very great team to be on.
Yeah, dude, I've seen some of the times y'all are putting down. I think that's stuff I only could dream about. Do you have any expectations for Gran Turismo 7?
Um, I know it's been a very big topic of conversation lately, is with the current penalty system that this game has been
Yeah,
given, where some of the penalties necessarily haven't been fair, but I think at the same time they're just trying to prevent contact happening at all, which is pretty hard, especially, I mean, in racing. I mean, contact happens, even accidentally, and I don't know if a lot of the penalties that have been given out lately deserve to be given out. Just because both guys after a race will say, yeah, that penalty was crap. It shouldn't have happened.
yeah. All the forums too. It's almost all you hear about is the penalty. So I'm in the boat with you. I'm hoping they get that they get that fixed.
But from what I saw, whatever Polyphony is released for Gran Turismo 7, it looks like they're going to be continuing with these FIA championship races and seasons. So hopefully a lot of the teams and a lot of the drivers will transition over to that.
That's cool. I thought I heard that they may have lost the FIA, but you know, like you said, they released that video and it looks like there's going to be online championships. So that's one of my favorite parts about this game.
Yeah, they might have lost the FIA certification. I'm not sure about that, so don't quote me on it, but I know that they will still have the online championships going on.
Yeah. Do you think that the core of the racing community is, I would say right now, I feel like it's still on the console because, the buy-in price for something like iRacing, if you really want to get into it, do you think that's going to stay the same going into the next generation?
I mean, the people on iRacing, they'll stay on iRacing. I don't see them transitioning over to PlayStation 5. And I think a lot of the people that are pretty big into PS4 and Gran Turismo, I think they'll stay.
Yeah.
I don't really see many people moving over to one platform to another, to be honest.
Yeah, I've seen some of the gear they use too is insane. Like you could there are pedals that actually have hydraulic systems that are like $1,400.
Yeah. Yeah, these rigs can get pretty pricey as well.
I know. I seen one guy that has a rig that moves and it shakes and stuff. That's some next level stuff.
There was one time I was actually at the Chicago Auto Show and I got the opportunity to try one of those. Ford had one out when they released their new GT a couple years ago, and they had this big hydraulic. I mean, the thing was like sitting like 20 feet in the air, standing on these massive hydraulics.
Dang.
Like, all right, well, I gotta try this. I gotta see what this is like compared to my bedroom. And so they had like this lift that you had to get in. There was a guy operating it to get you in and out of this rig. And, like, that's how high it was off the ground. Like, no one could even reach it. So, and he was the guy that actually is one of the engineers for that specific simulator company. I forgot what they were called. But they make, like, a bunch of simulators for, like, the Ford Racing Development Center. And a lot of, like, major racing teams use these simulators with the hydraulics. And I was talking to him, like, so, is there going to be, like, track control set? Or is there going to be, like, racing line assist? Is there going to be steering assist? And he looked at me like, how do you know that? I'm like, oh, I know a little bit or two about simulators. So then I got in it, and he's, like, telling me, like, yeah, I mean, because it was a simulator, and he set it up because the general public was there. He's not going to set it up where it's going to be, like, almost real race car simulation. So there was a lot of assists on the car that were already pre-set up. He's like, yeah, you don't even have to bother touching the brake pedal. The car will brake itself into the corners. You just have to lift off the throttle a little bit. I'm like, all right. So just to get a little bit of perspective, I get in it, and it was, I mean, like, the thing almost threw me out of the seat. They buckled you into, like, this 5-point harness, and there's, like, these giant, I think, 3 or 5 monitors around you. It was one of the most in-depth simulators I've ever seen in my life, and it was incredible to drive on it.
That sounds insane. And the TVs were shaking with this thing,
Yeah,
or they said
they had
what?
yeah. I mean, like when you would brake, the whole like seat and everything would like tilt downward to feel like the pressure that comes when heavily braking.
Wow. Now, I'm curious. I know you've got the TGT. Do you have the T3PA Pros or the T3PA pedals?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you,
I just have the regular ones that came with the wheel.
do you use that little conical mod?
No.
No. See, I used that little conical mod, and I think it was to my detriment for like 6 months. But because I feel like I couldn't let off the brake easily, like it would just drop to like 50%. I couldn't, you know. But yeah, that's when I tell people now that that question whether or not to use that conical mod. I just tell them not to because you're absolutely rapid. And Tijni, I know he uses the same pedals and he doesn't use the conical mod either. So I'm just like, man, I probably could have gained some time a long time ago, but I think that conical mod really got in the way. Did you ever have it, or like make the decision not to use it, or just not come with yours?
I mean, I know there was a lot of like hype when that piece was released. Like everyone was like, "Oh, this is gonna be so cool! It's gonna be so nice with the pedals." But then when people started using it, they're like, "I'm not really improving that much using it." So I never really thought of getting it in the first place, just because I thought my racing and my pace was fine, that I didn't really need to change anything that extreme. But yeah, I also was talking to some people, and they were saying that it was starting to like make their calves sore and like giving them like shin splints and stuff because it was so heavy. Like, yeah, I mean, I like sim racing. I like trying to be as in depth as I can, but I'm not going to put myself in physical harm for trying to gain a little performance.
Yeah, I realized something about that pedal set that I don't think people know, and it's a every time you shut off the system and then turn it back on, it recalibrates
Yes, it
based off
does.
how hard you hit that pedal. So if people that don't know are just going to mash that pedal down as hard as possible, and then they'll have to hit it as hard as possible every time they hit the brake. That took like 4 months to 3 months to figure out.
Yeah, I just kind of accidentally stumbled up on that. There was one time I was coming out of the pit lane, and I was just lightly applying my foot on the brake, but then it went all the way to 100%. I'm like, that's not right. So then I stopped the car, and I just like started playing with the brake pedal a little bit, and the more that I pressed it, like the more it just went back to normal.
That's pretty much the same thing that happened to me, and I think somebody just got destroyed behind you in this.
Yeah, I mean that's
That happened to this
that's
guy.
how hard these cars are to drive. I mean, they can. You might be going flat out through a corner that you usually go flat out through, and the car might just turn on you.
Oh, it looked like some guy poked his nose in where it shouldn't have been, and he ended up paying the price for it. So, for people that are trying to get fast, what would be your advice to them on how to get faster?
I wouldn't say it's anything necessarily that you do on the track for starters. I would say just like have a set schedule where you want to practice or figure out situations that you want to put yourself in the real race that you want to do in practice. So what I usually do for each of these FIA races, I'll spend maybe like a half hour just doing time trials just to figure out the track limits, how the car is going to react through a certain corner, how much I can actually push the car without worrying about fuel or tires, which is a really nice thing about the time trials, is you can just go in and you can just figure out how the car is going to drive around the track. But I don't usually go anything over a half hour a day, just because then you just start getting burnt out and you start just pushing yourself too hard, and you're just going to lose all pace and feel for what you're actually looking for. And then usually after that I'll probably do like maybe 2 or 3 practice races that's simulating all the real fuel consumption tire wear and qualifying, just to figure out what the best strategy is going to be for each race.
Do
And
you
then after
use
that,
lobbies for
you
those?
pretty much call it a day.
The online lobbies, do you use those for your practice races, or do you do like offline, like set up like a custom race?
I only do online lobbies.
It's different, isn't it? Like I think the physics are different offline.
Yeah, they're a lot different, and the car's balance of performance I don't think are the same.
Yeah. So you have a Twitch, right?
Yes.
You stream. What's your Twitch?
It's Twitch TV /VQS underscore Hollman, HOLLMAN. I've been doing recently just streaming all these FIA races for Top Split, just to give a lot of people a shotgun ride with me to, be on board with some pretty good racing.
Yeah, and I have witnessed myself that in those streams, every once in a while you can see or hear Sebastian squeaking a toy.
Yep, you can probably see him in the background as well.
I think it's one of my favorite parts of the stream.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really nice to know that people come for the dog and not me pushing myself to the limit around a virtual racetrack. So, you know what? Maybe I'll just set up a camera and I'll just have Sebastian sitting there. It won't even be racing.
Nah, it's like so it's like the I can go to any stream for racing, but there's only one stream that I can find Sebastian and racing and
That's
squeaky
true.
toys, and that's your
There's
stream.
not many sim racers that have a corgi for their team manager.
I really don't know how you do it. Like, if I have anybody in the room with me, I lose focus. Like, if somebody just cracks the door open, I hit a wall, like immediately. I don't know how. Like, I can't even stream and do a race at the same time. Did you like have to get used to that? Like, or did
Honestly, it kind of helps with the pressure. Like, if it's dead silent and I'm battling for maybe a podium or the lead of a race, my heart feels like it's about to come out of my chest or explode, and or maybe like my heart rate doubles in speed, and it gets so hard to control the car when my arms are almost shaking, because I know I have an opportunity to be the best in a certain race. So what I tend to do, so having Sebastian just squeak his toy in the background, it's a little soothing just to know that, all right, he's there, he's hanging out, everything's cool. No need to worry about anything. And also being in lobby chats with some of the other drivers in these races and just hearing them talk, because a lot of them, they like to talk during the race. I don't like talking during the race. That's when I start messing up. But hearing other people's voices, it's a little more soothing.
Yeah, that's interesting that you talk about, the heart racing there, that, when you're battling somebody, because, that's, I think, everyone's first win is like that. Like, my first win, I felt like I was going to fall out of the chair. I don't know how I was hitting the brake, but, I think, people get so used to where they are that, they, that doesn't happen as much. But, when you're racing for stuff like yesterday, you got a win, and that's a top split win. And so I feel like, I guess hearing you talk about that really reminds me, that brings that back. You know what I mean? You never can really escape the heart pounding, battles.
Right. It's not like something that you tell yourself to do. Like, all right, I'm leading a race now. Time to, freak out a little bit. Get sweaty hands and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not something that I voluntarily tell myself to do. It just happens. That's actually one thing that I've been trying to overcome, is that feeling of, battling for a position, but then ending up just staying behind someone because you just keep messing up in some of the corners.
Yeah. I think I have a tendency not to, once I get behind somebody, do you ever catch yourself kind of just matching their pace instead of doing what you're capable of?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the car and track situations, because there are some tracks where it's overtaking someone isn't really difficult. It's not something that you really have to challenge yourself at. And then there's other tracks where every overtake matters so much. So you have to like try to get the best out of every single corner, but then it's pretty at those same tracks. It's pretty easy just to get stuck behind someone.
Yeah. Well, we're on the last race of your top 16, your most previous top 16 superstar race. You've been in 3 of them, right?
Yep.
This one, it looks like you're about to secure yourself a top 10 spot in a top 16 superstar race, which is pretty freaking awesome.
And it's not over yet. I mean, the race isn't over until it's over. So you see, Phoenix 7 Windfire, he's a World Tour caliber driver representing the United States in a lot of Nations Cup stuff. And I don't know what happened to him earlier in the race, because he was out front. But right here, there was an overtake around him. One of the last corners of the last laps. I think I might have been on better tires than him, which gave me the extra grip on the inside to get around him. So actually not just get 10th, which is, before this, was my best finish in a top 16 race, but to improve that by 1 position and finishing 9th.
Yeah, and beating Windfire is no joke. I mean, every race that I think I've only shared a lobby with him once or twice, and he started first, he finished first, he was gone. And I think you actually, if I remember right, he qualified behind you at the beginning of this race, so you were able to keep him back there. That's pretty good. But I think this shall conclude our interview. I really appreciate you hanging out with me, man.
Yeah, no problem. It was a good talk, man.
All right, well, thank you, and thank everybody for watching. We'll see who's next. Who knows how long that might be, but thank you guys, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.